He's made a lot of progress. He moves slowly, and he still has a 1-to-1 aid, but he continues to progress. Wow, who saw that coming? I didn't. So what does this mean for you? Why is this important? TBI is a big deal, and it can happen to anyone at any time. If this happens in your family, get all the help you can. You'll be faced with situations and decisions that you know nothing about. I have an MBA degree that prepared me not a bit for this. It didn't help me at all. You can be as educated as you want. It doesn't mean anything. My father's PCP and case manager were terrific. They dealt with this stuff all the time, and they were really helpful. My father also has a significant other who's 89. She was terrific. My wife was great. So you've really got to lean on the people around you. Keep up your hope. We were in a dark tunnel for a long time, but finally came out the other side. We're not out of the woods yet, but things look brighter every day. The other implication for me, and maybe someday for you, is the word sandwich. I'm a caregiver twice. I care for my daughter with a serious disability, and now for my father. I'm sandwiched between my responsibilities for both of them, and it's having big implications for my life, my job, my career, and everything else. I didn't plan for this. Maybe there's a lesson in this for me, and any of you that go through this, if you find yourself in a similar situation. It can happen quickly, and you need to be ready. So the original title of this speech was To Hell and Back. The title of this speech, if you caught it, was To Hell and Back Again. If I was going to give this speech on March 24th, that was my ending. But there's a new ending. The alternate ending, the true ending. Remember, my father fell on December 26th on the tennis court and hit his head. 2 Sundays ago, my father fell on the tennis court again and hit his head. Another traumatic brain injury. He died 2 days later. To hell and back again.
That is to hell and back again. We're going to call an audible here, football terms. Robert was going to speak, and then he lost his evaluator, but with the minimal amount of people, I think Robert is going to go ahead and give his speech, which is going to be great. I know it is. But Robert, could you tell us what your speech objectives are?
Well, first of all, do I know it? Secondly, was it delivered smoothly? I'm going to be presenting it at the Rotary Club, partially this, and I'm going to be doing about 30 minutes there, but they'll include parts of this in there for the humor aspect of it, as to some of the funny things that can happen when you write a book.
Okay. He has also asked us that we are all going to evaluate him. So I'd ask you to just make some notes on the 3x5 cards, or 4x6 in this case. Yeah. And when it comes time for the evaluation, you can evaluate him from your chair at the time. So I would like to introduce Robert, speech number 2.
Speech number 200. I have something to say about football.
Is it 5 to 7 minutes ago?
Make it 6 to 8. I have something to say about football, and that is, I'm not particularly a fan of the Patriots. I don't care whether they win or lose. I do watch all of the games because I have DirecTV, and so that allows me to be a guest at whatever game I wish on Sunday, et cetera, et cetera. And I would say that of the 3 hours that I sit there, 2.5 are ads. Somebody is constantly telling me that I'm on the wrong mattress. To the point where I go upstairs and check my mattress. So that's what I have to say about football. Anyway, I will say one thing, Peter. It was an amazing speech. Amazing. And you had me riveted. I will say the scary part of it is when you named the symptoms. I don't have TBI, but I have most of those symptoms. No memory.
I hope not. I don't think so.
ADD.
I've seen you give speeches. You don't have those. That's in there.
The name of this speech is a friend of mine read it and loved it and said, "But it ain't no War and Peace." That's right. Thank God it's not. Anyway, it was early in the morning. I was brushing my teeth. And the phone rang. 7 o'clock in the morning. It's unusual for me to get, so I pick it up. And it's my sister-in-law, Ruth. What on earth could she want at 7 o'clock in the morning? I could tell by her voice that she was upset. "Hi, Ruth, how are you?" She said, "I just finished your book. I read it in segments. I enjoyed most of it." "Excuse me, I'm glad you enjoyed most of it." She said, "Do you happen to remember the date that Charlotte had that party in Texas?" I said, "No." She said, "Well, according to your book, she had a party in Texas where she invited all her relatives and friends. Do you remember that I wasn't there, or my husband Paul, your brother, he wasn't there?" "No," I said. "Well," she said, "we didn't even get an invitation to the party." I started thinking, why on earth would Ruth and Paul not get an invitation to a party? Now, I knew my sister Charlotte was not crazy about Ruth, but so it goes in families, right? She loved Paul. Paul was our oldest sibling. He was a hero to us. He had done 50 missions in the Second World War. He was impossible, but we loved him. We loved him because he was impossible. So there was no way she would have invited Paul no matter what she thought about Ruth. And I'm thinking, I thought I'll go back to the book and I'll look at the party and maybe I'll recall. So yes, I picked up the book. There never was a party. I made the party up in order to tell the story that I wanted to tell about my sister, who was a teacher at Concord, and her librarian friend, who was a librarian at the school. And the only way I could picture this setting was to have a party that my sister never threw. Well, I called Ruth, and I said, "Ruth, you're going to have to believe it. There never was a party. I made it up." I cannot tell you how delighted she was. She said, "I feel so much better now." She said, "I felt awful that I wouldn't have been included, and Paul wouldn't have been included in the family party." So I felt I had done something good from something bad. And my wife is always telling me the problem with authors is basically they're assassins. This time, thank goodness, I missed the bullet. Things happen when you write a book. Not all of them good, a lot of them funny. The next story is I decided to do an audio. As a matter of fact, one of the reasons that I decided to do an audio is Betsy Bray came up to me and said that she's found it impossible to read anymore because her dyslexia has gotten so bad and she needed an audio. My mother-in-law, who's 96, said the same thing. So I sought out to do an audio, and there's a huge company that does them. And evidently, believe it or not, it's bigger than print today. There was an article in the Times that said there were more audio tapes selling than books. Reason? Time. Put them in your car, put them on your bicycle, when you take a walk, when you're multitasking in the kitchen, you put an audio on. People don't have that kind of time to read. And so that's why audios are bigger than books. Okay, so I went ahead and auditioned from this company 7 different, they call them producers, who would do my audio. Everybody said that I should do it, but I wanted a professional. So I listened to 5 or 6 of them, and finally came upon one, John Nickerson, from Texas, and I thought that he had a perfect voice. Well, my job at that point is after he did them, just like you're reviewing a book, I had to review every single story. And they were mostly good until it came to New York. Now, there's something about New York, I guess, that doesn't happen in any other part of the world. And there's one story in the book, it's called Losing My Cool. And it's about coming from Dorchester, Mass, where I said, none of us had any cool. We would have given anything to be cool, but we weren't. And then I moved to New York, and I looked around, and everybody was cool. So I started working on getting cool, and I thought I was getting there. I had a very blonde girlfriend, I had my own apartment, I had a job, I had all the things that could make me a little bit cool, and I put up my step, you know, I thought I was getting a little cool in my step. But one day, I went into a deli in the Bronx. I'm living in Manhattan, and I used to go by this deli on Saturdays because I pick up my clothes there and I go to work where my office was. And I smelled the aroma of corned beef and half sour pickles. And I wanted to go in there desperately, but my girlfriend hated deli. She said she would never eat from a place that hung a tongue in the window. But one day I could no longer resist. I went in. When I finally got to the counter, the guy behind the counter hated me on sight. Hated me. "What can I do for you, sonny boy?" he yelled out. And I very quietly said something like, "I'll have around 30 cents worth of Nova Scotia." "We don't have Nova Scotia here, sonny boy, we have Lux." And on, and you know, he takes out a knife and he says, "This will be 32 cents, is that too much for you?" Finally we get to the end, and I said, "I'll have one bagel." He adds it up, and on top of his voice he says, "That'll be 92 cents, sonny boy." And in the loudest voice ever, he says, "What are you having, a party?" Now the Texan reads this because he's a nice guy. He reads it, "What are you having, a party?" No, he's not nice. He's not inquiring as to whether I'm having a party. He's not saying, "What are you having, a party today?" He's saying, "What are you having, a party, sonny boy?" I'm trying to explain Jewish New York sarcasm from the Bronx. It took me about 30 minutes. He never really got there, but he did better. Then there was one other occasion. I tell a story that when I was 4 years old, I went to a party, and when it got to be about the 13th present from my friend, I started screaming, "That one's mine!" I get thrown out of the party, and in the story it says that I never get invited to another party within a 50-mile radius. And so I had to move to New York, which is 200 some miles away, so I could go to parties. And I meet a lot of women who are editors in various magazines, and they invite me to a party because they don't know anything about this ruckus I caused. So I go to my very first party, and some editor walks in, and I want to go over and meet her. And I do, and I'm standing in front of her. And she looks at me, and she says, "Yes." He says, "Yes? No." She's not nice. She's a New York beautiful woman who looks at me as if to say, "What are you standing in my way for?" She says, "Yes." Well, I finally got it to get close to the yes. But those are some of the things that I say happen when you write a book. And I say to all of you, for your own self-preservation, do not write a book because you become a monster.
Thank you, Robert. Did you use audible.com
What?
for your audiobook?
I used a company that's supposed to be #1 audio. Yeah, I guess it is audio.com. And they have access to, I guess they said it's trillions of these things.
Yeah.
Am I just fine about that?
Yeah. So we'll be able to find you soon.
Say it again?
Are you published on
Yeah, I'm
audible.com?
published as a book.
Right, so we can find you on Audible.
No, you can find my book on Amazon. And Barnes & Noble and do that.
Good.
See, I told you, you become the most obnoxious person in the world. You can't stop. That's my book. You have to read it. You hate yourself, but it happens.
Next up is Table Topics. And Al Davis is going to be our Table Topics leader. So since we all have roles, I think we're all fair game.